What's happening? Oh,
Go ahead. No.
It's still on schedule. It's not showing live.
It says live, but I don't think that's...
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a special 100th episode of our Just Two Dads podcast with my co-host and my partner, Mr. Shawn Francis. I am Brian Altunian, and I'd like to welcome all of you. Today's a very special episode because it's our 100th. With us today, our special guest, my lovely daughter, Jordan Quinones. We're going to be talking about what's happened over the last 2 years as we've embarked on this podcast campaign and what the future looks like and the commitment to change the lives of 1,000 families over the next 12 months. So stay tuned for another episode of Just Two Dads. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. This is Brian Altunian, my co-host, Mr. Shawn Francis. I want to thank you if you're catching us on Facebook Live. Welcome. Hope that you'll participate, throw some comments in the chat, and let us know, what you think. If you have a favorite episode that you've seen us do, please let us know. Put that in the chat. If you're catching us after the fact on our YouTube channel at We Are Just Two Dads, welcome. Please subscribe, share with your friends. Let us know in the comments if there's other topics or people that you think we ought to have on the podcast. If you're catching us on WSTX AM radio down in the U.S. Virgin Islands or on podcast outlets everywhere, welcome. Looking forward to spending the next little bit of time with you as we talk about where we've been, what we're doing, and where we're going as we, again, embark now, I guess, after this on our next 100 episodes. I want to thank Sean Hall, who's out in Hawaii as well, kind of managing the back end for us, and all the love and support we get from Sean Hall. So thank you, Sean. So we're going to jump into kind of what we're doing and what's going on. Before I do that, I'm feeling excited because this is a big milestone. This is 100 episodes is in my opinion, it's a very big deal. And I think that when we started this out, I don't think that we thought that we would be doing this. I don't know what we actually were thinking about. I just know that it has gone a whole bunch of different ways, and we're really excited about it. So before we get into that conversation, let's talk to Shawn Francis. How are you feeling today, buddy? Feeling good?
I am. I'm feeling good and super reflective. There's a lot of things that I've witnessed this week in terms of news and interviews and podcasts and things like that, where one message that seems to have come about so much is about living in a moment and being present. And that's something that's really resonating with me. And I'm going to try not to be all over the place, but I usually fail at that. But for instance, at the time that we're doing this, Olivia Newton-John has just passed away. And I saw an interview with her where somebody was talking to her about how her health was. And she said, and they were talking about her career. And she says, I've had a fantastic career. And, I look back on it every now and then, but I don't really do that much unless somebody brings it up. I'm so much in the moment. And I remember great mentor of ours, Ed Milet, has said for years now, talking about successful people are future oriented. And maybe even more so in the present, because the present what you give to the present dictates what you get in the future. And so many of us, myself included, my gosh, I'm like nostalgic to a fault. You think back to, I don't feel like the good old days are all gone, so to speak, but it's just really interesting. So then when you get back to where we are today and the purpose of the show, you really hit me upside the head when you said, well, I don't know if we thought we'd be doing this. I'm not sure what we were thinking. And you're absolutely right, because in the chat on Facebook, Sean Hall is telling us, it's live. And the first couple of seconds when anybody hears this, because we don't do any editing, you're going to hear us going, I think, is it live? I think there's a little glitch there, So this is as in the moment as it gets. And on one hand, I found myself then thinking, yeah, 100 episodes. Okay, let's keep going. We haven't even chopped this thing up into seasons. We've just been doing episodes. And so that's something else that we'll probably talk about. Do we want to start dividing it up into seasons and figure out what a season is? So I'm so appreciative for a 100th episode, but at the same time feel like, well, it's not like it's 500 or 1,000. But when I do that, I'm robbing the moment. I think you told me last night when we were talking, you're like, no, this is a big deal. And so when you talk about the show itself and how it came about, I put together the posts that usually go out promoting the show day of. And when I do that, I include the guest's name. And when I did that and I included Jordan's name, I didn't just say Brian's daughter, Jordan, will be joining us. I said, we'll be joined by Jordan, who is Brian's daughter and one of the inspirations for the show. Because we didn't sit up and say, you know what? Jordan's inspiring. Let's come up with a show because she's inspiring. No, but she is one of the inspirations for the show, just as is my son Elijah and anybody else in the community that we know that has been a warrior. So with that said, and us jumping right into it, Jordan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's awesome to see you as always, Joe. And that was kind of my thought too. And when Shawn and I first got together and started talking about in our business of financial services, about the impact that we could have on educating folks in the special needs community, a lot of that came out of a conversation that, two separate conversations. Jordan and I had a conversation about how we impact communities, our communities. For some people, it's a church community. For some people, it's a cultural community, right? And some people, it's it's for women or for men or for athletes or for former military, like whatever your community is. We want all communities to have a positive impact. And I remember Jordan saying, well, so Dad, so which community would be my target community? And we thought, well, geez, what if we talked about special needs families, not just people who have special needs, but the families and, everybody around that. And that community is, one of those that, I remember when Jordan was in school, we were like, well, so is she going to get through school? And which school is going to be the most effective for her? And will she have a job? And, our diagnosis for Jordan was 13 months old or 18 months old now. I blocked it because it was so traumatic. Our neurologist told us all the things that Jordan couldn't do, right? And many of you who have children or have family members in special needs community, all the things they tell you that your child's not going to do. The last thing on my mind was, I better make sure that, I have my own financial situation in order. So if something happens to me, Jordan is going to be taken care of. I didn't even think about that. So relating to that, like that would be a great thing for special needs families to know that there's a resource. So then knowing that Shawn had a son on the autism spectrum, we thought, hey, why don't we join forces? Hey, Shawn, have you ever thought about doing this? And Shawn's like, oh yeah, that's already done. Like I've already been thinking this way. So those are two separate conversations to show how aligned Shawn and I are in our thinking. Two separate conversations that were happening simultaneously with the same intent. And so Shawn was like, yeah, I've got this presentation and I'm trying to get it, approved and, set up. And so we'd go do that. And so we started this venture in that conversation, in those two conversations simultaneously of what's our community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joe, you were going to say something.
That's a really good point, that you think that it's only affecting you, but you don't realize that it's affecting everybody else around you. So when you bring up that conversation to that one person, you don't realize that it's actually just affecting the whole family, not just that one specific person.
Absolutely. 100%. And I should have pointed out what we're going to do today. I should have done this from the outset. Is we're going to talk about, as we have been doing here for the last minute or so, how the show came to be. We're going to review some of the topics that we've discussed in the past. And we're also going to talk about then the direction and that the show will be going in the future and the vision that we have, as well as a pretty big campaign and crusade that we have launched from the financial services piece. We'll discuss that in the second half, but let's go ahead and continue with what we're talking about with the show. It's almost like, just like people that come into your lives when you have a good rhythm and everything. In some cases, you're like, I know exactly when I met that person. In your case, I know exactly when I met you, but at the same time, it would be just as appropriate for me to kind of go, I don't remember exactly how we met, because it's kind of like that person's always been there. So I know exactly the moment that we met, right? But the show really seems like a blur. And so Brian, like Brian is saying, we started talking about, if what we do in financial services is different from the way the industry does it, then we're probably better positioned than anybody else to go serve a certain community, and ours happens to be the special needs community because we can help the wealthy, we can help the middle class, anybody that's beneath that from a socioeconomic standpoint. And so we began that. But when it came to the show, we were approached by, matter of fact, Elijah's former teacher, one of his teachers, who was actually a client, a member of the special needs community, told me on a Monday, hey, I just got back from this trip. And I met this guy who's an autism dad, and he has a podcast. He has a show. I told him about what you and Brian do, and he wants to connect with you guys. We're like, wow, okay, that's great. So we connected with them, and they, like most people, at least I think most people, I think we're a bit of an anomaly doing this thing live. They record it and then edit. And so we went over to their place. They had these great microphones set up, and Brian and I, having had experience in entertainment ourselves separately, still, we felt pretty comfortable, but at the same time, we were like, oh, this is kind of a neat idea. We're looking around and we have the conversation, and the guy says, yeah, I'll keep you posted when it airs. And we're like, yeah, okay, cool. And we just assumed that episodes had aired, and it hadn't aired. And then I thought, this is how naive I was. I was like, well, am I wrong to ask for a copy of it? Maybe we should have a copy of it because it's not airing. We don't know what it sounds like, because it felt good. And then he emailed it to me, and they just never got around to airing the episodes. They bought all the recording equipment and recorded them. And then we were like, you know what? For a couple of buffoons, we sounded pretty good on there.
It was an interesting conversation because, first of all, as you're saying, people who know us now, put a microphone in front of Shawn and Brian, and you don't even have to give them subject matter. They're just going to go. They're just going to talk. Jordan's like shaking her head, like, yeah, yep. So I remember sitting there, and it was like in their kitchen table. And it was like we were having a kitchen table conversation. We just happened to have good microphones and good quality stuff, and we thought, oh, these guys know what they're doing. And then I remember walking out of their house, and I said to you, and honestly, I don't remember who said it, so it doesn't really matter. But
I don't remember who. Yeah.
We should do that. Like, we can do that. Like, we can.
And it was still an afterthought. We weren't serious about it. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. So anyway, and we changed the subject.
And then we walked off. Yeah. And then the fact that it took forever and we never saw the episode, we're like, we can do that. And I'm telling you, I'm looking now at dates, at our dates. The very first one was July 24th of 2020.
And here's what we did. We didn't even say, you know what, we're going to put it on Apple and all these. That's not what took place. So first of all, credit to those guys for inviting us, and I thank you to them. I've never gotten a response, but I told them, I said, here's what you inspired. And I sent them the link. But we went from there to I was like, I post on social media, but I've never done a live. Maybe we should do like a Facebook live and just have one of our conversations. And the other thing that we have in common is unlike, I guess, most men, although most men are like emotionally jerks. We're not in touch with the way we feel and that kind of stuff. We happen to be two guys that are in touch with the emotions too. So we started having these conversations. And the first one was kind of like, is this thing on? Are we on? I think we're on. Now we're live. And it was, 20 minutes or something like that?
Yeah. So, and even before that, just so people understand that, Shawn and I would just have regular conversations over the phone, like old friends, on a nearly daily basis, where we could almost talk about any subject, and not always have agreement, but have great conversations, and always give each other a little different perspective on things. And it was always a good rapport. There was always a good back and forth. And so we just thought, well, we're just going to start this podcast because we kind of talk about anything. It kind of doesn't matter.
We didn't even call it a podcast then. We didn't even think podcasts.
Let's go live.
We started going live, and there was a guy that worked in our financial services business, and he transitioned into recording and worked in the music business. And he asks me one day, he said, hey, where's your podcast available? And I was like, we have a podcast? I was like, well, if you mean our chats, I was like, Facebook Live, duh. I mean, what do you mean? Where's it available? Yeah. And he said, so you guys aren't on like Apple or Spotify or anything like that? I'm like, no, don't you have to be somebody to be able to do that? And this is Mike Jackson. Shout out to Mike Jackson. And he said, no, you should use the service called Anchor. They'll put your show out on all those platforms. And I'm like, really? Man, what do they charge for that? And he's like, well, they don't charge anything. I was like, are they clinically insane? That doesn't make any sense. Who does that?
Yeah.
you know, and then it went from there. And then my good friend Robert Moorhead, who I went to school with in 4th and then again in 9th grade on St. Thomas, who's originally from St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He happened to tell us one day, he says, you know what? The conversations you guys are having, most men don't have, and people need to hear about, and men need to hear about them. So I thank you to him as well. And he had been tuning in each week. And says, would you guys be open to having your show on, in the, on the Virgin Islands? I mean, it's not, you don't have to, but we were like, but yeah, why not? So he's the reason why that took place. So for anybody who spent a minute watching us and supporting us, thank you to infinity.
Well, and I would say, Shawn, be careful on your mic is dropping in and out on occasion. So
okay,
just give you the heads up on that. But because here we are, 100 episodes in, and we're still like tinkering with, and I'm on a different device than I normally record this show on, so I can't see comments or I can't see anything today. So 100 episodes in, and we're still going. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Our first guest, by the way, was on September 23rd. Well, actually, did we have Jordan on early? Because I don't remember. We had a couple of episodes where we didn't have any guests, and then we had one. Our first official non-family guest was Layla Luna. So I'm just like going through the list of like things that we did. So Layla, who had a goal to create places where folks with special needs family members could go, select times, do some education around restaurants and whatnot, education around what special needs families might need as far as attention, minimizing a lot of the stimulus and that type of thing. That was our first. We've had Georgiana Junko-Kelman on a couple of times. She's an advocate, an attorney for special needs families.
Was technically challenged too.
The Layla Luna one, we couldn't get her on a 3-way. We didn't know how to do a 3-way conversation on Facebook Live. So Shawn and I were on Facebook Live, and Shawn, I remember you freezing. I had Layla on my phone, and I was like, whatever, we were talking to her like this and like put the phone up. It was kind of crazy. That was early on. Georgiana was fun, and that was we thought, okay, well, maybe we're onto something. We've had Georgiana on a couple times. Our next guest was Glenn Wagstaff, who does estate planning and special needs trust. We've had Glenn on several times. We've had Jordan. First of all, Jordan, who has been not only a guest and a participant. Jordan signs into almost every podcast every week for 2 years and comments, "Hey, you three," like consistently, like our number one listener. So it's been awesome to have you here, and again, being part of the inspiration.
Yeah. And then we had the challenge. We had Jim and Kathy Gott, who were just amazing.
Oh my God.
Jim is a former pitcher with the Dodgers. They have, I believe, more than one child on the autism spectrum. They have a facility called Danny's Farm, named after one of their kids, where they have therapy and all kinds of things. And we're due for another visit with them because they had a project that they were launching. But the very first time that they came on, for whatever reason, my tech gave me the complete middle finger, so I wasn't even on video, or I couldn't be heard. I forget which one it was.
Well, and the other funny thing about that episode was, like, if you're watching us on Facebook Live today, or you're seeing us on the YouTube channel, you see that our image is horizontal. We had it shifted. Like, Shawn, show them what happens when we shift it to a vertical thing. And can you do that?
I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, and then Kathy and Jim. Yeah, so we had it like this, right, which was pretty narrow, and we had two of them, and so like. I think Kathy was sitting on Jim's lap, and they were trying to get centered. And then you would ask questions, and then you would freeze. And so then it was a disaster, you guys. By the way, here's the lesson in all of this. You can have a completely disastrous beginning. It doesn't dictate the end, right? It doesn't dictate where you're going. It doesn't matter. Our goals were, once we started to see that there were people involved in the special needs community, that we're serving the special needs community without any fanfare, without any special, thing other than their own personal commitment. We thought, this is what this podcast should be about. This podcast should be about shining the spotlight on those amazing people that are serving the special needs community out of their own, taking their own experience and turning around. And honestly, for me, the next guest was personally the catalyst for me seeing that, and that was Susanna Peace Lavelle, who we were hoping was going to be on today's show, because as really a source of inspiration again on our ongoing service to the special needs community. And Susanna, as a coach for special needs families and has a child on the autism spectrum as well, she's going to be going to school with my son, same high school, which by the way was the same high school that Jordan went to many years ago. So we've had a very close relationship with Susanna, who has helped been a guide and a support of for us and influence. But more importantly, it's when I realized that we have something to offer. And the response that we kept getting, because we had a lot of women, a lot of warrior moms as our early guests, the messaging we kept getting was, dads don't do this. Why are you guys doing this? And we don't have huge egos, although Shawn and Jordan might disagree that I have a huge ego, but we don't, like, this isn't like the Brian and Shawn show. Like, this, it wasn't really about, it was like, we're just two dads having a conversation. We're just two dads having a conversation about the things that are important to us that make a difference in our lives, and how dads approach this. And dads come to special needs, differently than moms do. I have a very special relationship with Jordan through this and through so many other experiences. And so our focus for our podcast has always been, let's shine the light on those folks who are making a difference. Maybe there's something of value that we can have in just having a conversation that will impact families. And again, that's where we are. That's where we're going. We could go through the whole list of all the people that we've had, but you can see us on our YouTube channel. You can see some of the great guests. We'll mention a few more as we go along here. But Shawn, if it's okay, I just want to ask Jordan, Joe, your experience over the last 2 years as an occasional guest and participant, and then just being a viewer of what's going on, like how have things since we started this podcast, has this changed your perspective on anything? What has this done for you? What's your thought about, the podcast itself and what we're doing? And again, it was not about just the podcast, you guys. It's just a celebration of the 100th episode. So we're not trying to be self-congratulatory here. We're just talking about the platform as the beginning of something which I think could be quite.
And we're so busy doing. Sometimes we have no idea how it impacts people. So we're always trying to figure that out and get that perspective too. And Jordan's in one of the best positions to do that.
Well, it's not just about me, like how I feel about what you guys are doing. I think what you are doing is amazing, and I think what you are doing is you're bringing the community so much closer, and I feel like you're giving inspiration, and you're showing that just two regular dads are doing so much for so many, even if you're not even trying to have a specific message or a specific I guess anything specific. Is just two regular people with two dads and sharing two similar stories, but you are making a huge impact on so many. I have definitely seen
No, keep going. It's great.
Having guests come on and having them share what their experiences are and sharing what other stories are is so impactful for so many. It's not just sharing what you guys what you've been through, but you're showing others what others go through, and you're sharing others who've been through stuff, but they also came out on the other side. It's so impactful and so inspirational.
I love it. Well, and hopefully it's helping, it's giving you, some idea that this community that you're a member of, that we are members of in our family, is large. There's a lot of people impacted, and it's a whole variety of things. And Shawn and I say this all the time, that you may not be a member of the special needs community today, but eventually you're going to be, because special needs, as we always say, isn't something, really that unique. It's the same need that we all have. It's just a little more in certain areas. When we get older, we're going to need help, right? those who are elderly become part of the special needs community because they just need more help in certain areas. Sometimes it's getting around, sometimes it's feeding, sometimes it's just, walking around and getting around and getting transported. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's comprehension. Like there's so many things that impact us. Eventually we're all going to become members of the special needs community. If we're in another guest we were trying to get here today, which, and again, one of the most impactful conversations we had early on was with our good friend and partner, Mr. Adam Hancock. And Adam, who was not a member of the special needs community by virtue of of anything that occurred during birth or after the fact, but actually was a victim of a horrific accident. He is now in a wheelchair as a paraplegic, and yet he is in our business. He's our securities, branch office manager, handles a ton of securities work for our financial company, not allowing his, physical limitations limit the impact he can have on community. And so kind of commandeered this conversation, Shawn. So I'm sorry.
No, not at all. We got to
Adam,
go where it goes. Yeah.
We talk about Adam a little bit because I love that man, and that was one of the most impactful episodes for me because I listened to it for the first time in the car on a drive north to Santa Barbara, and I was blown away by. For me, that was a moment where I thought, again, holy cow, we're doing something significant here. Just listening to Adam's episode on our podcast.
That was one of the episodes where I sent it to a bunch of people, and I think that's something else to think of too, because we kind of just do what we do and we go. It's available. Yeah, put it up and it's available. And then when you go back and you look, you're like, you may think in the moment, oh, we just did this, or this is the latest thing, so let me send you the latest thing. And you don't stop and think that we're talking about, this is episode 100. We got 2 years under our belt. There's things that you've done and maybe even forgotten about that people hear for the first time, and you're like, you don't know what they get out of it. That was one episode, the episode with Adam, where I sent it to multiple people, and I had one friend in particular who was like, okay, I just checked that out. I listened to his story, and when he talked about exactly what he went through, I lost it. I couldn't keep it together, and I was so inspired, and I was in tears. And this is a guy. And so those are the types of things that that matter and stay with you. And the other thing that I'm finding out as we're here at a 100th episode is that I kept thinking about what would it be like if we just impact like all these people. And it's funny because so many people that we know that are in the podcast space and the area of personal development have like thousands and in some cases millions of followers and thousands of listeners each week. And so if we're going to dare to do one, because I want to reach and impact as many people as possible, all I've thought about is that number. There's two things I've overlooked, which is there's immeasurable value and a yet to be determined number of people that get affected between episode 1 and 100, and then even more so between now and that. I don't know. I'm so thankful for every viewer and subscriber that we have, but we definitely want to touch more people. I don't know what the number would be where you go, oh, okay, no, this is comparable. This shows that I watch and people that I follow that reach thousands of people each week. So I guess maybe that's the number. But the thing is, between now and then, that takes time, and the one thing I can say that I feel so good about is the organic way in which this is being done, which is why I appreciate the people that take the time to tune in and follow us, because it seems like more and more lately I've seen ads on social media in particular that talk to you about, you can have, 50,000 more followers in a week, and how is that real unless you're buying them or whatever have you? And so you want to reach as many people as possible, but you want to do so, as yourself too. And I'm just really grateful that we're able to be our authentic selves and encourage other people to do the same thing, because being yourself is the one thing that you can do better than anybody else. Nobody will ever be as good at that as you.
For sure. Well, Adam was our guest on November 25th of 2020. So it was our 14th episode. So it was quite a ways ago, quite a while ago. Susanna and Jordan were on during the holidays, and then Jordan was on again in April. So Jordan has been probably our more frequent one of our more frequent guests. Susanna, definitely a frequent guest as well. We've had folks who are city councilmen, Constantine Anthony, that's been on our show. We've had people who have been running for office. Sam Yebrey, who was running for LA City Council.
Correct,
People who have made a huge impact. We have people who are in support groups for moms in the special needs community. So Jessica Pate and the We Are Brave Together folks. Again, another organization that Susanna's involved in, but Jessica has not only been a guest on our show and us a guest on her show, but we now do seminars for her support group. And because we see the alignment between moms and dads in this space. So that's been amazing. We've spoken to educators and, Mark Esposito in New York, and filmmakers, Dan Habib in New Hampshire, and, so many just great. We've talked to nutritionists and counselors and advisors and IEP advocates that we've loved. One of our senior guys in our financial services business, Jeff Levitan, another episode that we had done back in February of 2021. Jeff has 2 children on the autism spectrum. Jeff has his own foundation called the All for One Foundation that he created to create prosperity centers around the world, but doesn't talk a lot about his 2 children that are on the autism spectrum. And that was an incredibly meaningful episode, because Jeff's one of our mentors, and we got a chance to, sort of pull down the curtains, if you will, and have a real
high vulnerability
dad conversation with vulnerability. And that was huge.
That's go ahead.
No, you go, you make your comment there. I have another one I'll talk about later, but
between that and the fact that we're at the, I can't believe I'm saying this, the halfway mark of the show is the perfect time to talk about, several things. We've touched on in several ways, and in times what we've done is both the podcast is a byproduct of our financial services business, and the financial services business is a byproduct of us being able to, in our own situation, take that and turn it into an opportunity to help and serve other people. And so some of the guests that we've had on have been people who have done the very same thing. And we've talked about, rather than talking to somebody about our business in particular, because we never wanted to have the show serve as a way to just promote what we do, but definitely to promote the best of that, which is maybe taking people, having people that have taken a situation like a diagnosis for their child and turn it into a business by providing value to other people in a variety of different ways. This is the closest we're ever going to come to flat out promoting what we do. And it's still not directly so, but let's talk a little bit about the campaign and the crusade that we have to serve and help 1,000 families, 1,000 special needs families in particular, over the next 12 months, and a little bit about where that came from and what's got us there, because that's another one of those things that seems like it just came to be so organically that I can't really pinpoint where that came from. I think you were the first person that mentioned that, especially as far as a number and a target. And when you did, I was like, quit walking around in my head.
So I'm glad that you bring that up. So let's talk about that. And again, and Joe, feel free to contribute where you see, because again, you're gonna be a part of this as well. So a few things, as I was looking through the list of the folks that we've had on the show and the impact that they've had, a lot of folks just that we've talked to who we think are warriors, who we're so impressed by the work that they do. And I'll mention Brett Lieberman at the Yes I Can Unity program, that he takes young adults with special needs issues and educates them and trains them to do things in the music and entertainment industry, and gives them an opportunity, whether it's engineering or lighting or, whatever aspect of the entertainment industry. And they actually do, live performances, and that's an amazing school. And we've, had the benefit of it and seeing that. And I asked him at one time, like, what's the goal? And he was like, I really don't have a specific goal in mind. And of course, I'm always thinking, well, geez, why don't we have a Yes I Can Unity Center, like in the U.S. Virgin Islands and in other places? Like, I'm thinking, like, how do you grow this? We've talked to,
right.
right, the Danny's Farms and the parks that are set up for inclusion. Like, how do you expand that? And then, as we had our annual conference for our financial services business, and we were looking at how people future cast, how they create a crusade with purpose and specificity. It's one thing if you say, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to make, X amount of dollars, or I'm going to sell 1 million shoes, or I'm going to, whatever it is, right? You can have a goal. The more specific, the more that you have with specificity, the better the likelihood of getting there, because it becomes something clear. And so as I was sitting there and being inspired by folks who had a massive crusade, Shawn and I talk about the work that we are doing here with Sean Hall and Jordan and Adam and Susanna, and the work that we've all done collectively. It's a crusade for us. This is a crusade. What started as a general conversation of just two dads having a conversation has turned into something more than that. Last year, we had a summit where we took a lot of the folks that we had interviewed and gave them a chance to showcase their services to other people, and created a summit and had a plan to do that on an annual basis. And that's all good. And that, again, that gives us a little bit more target, a little bit more purpose. But putting some specificity on what we're trying to accomplish, I thought, if we said that we want to impact the lives of 1,000 families, giving them an education around finances and making sure that they know that there's a community here to try to educate them about finances and provide protection and support, like special needs trusts and other things that they can learn specific to their goals, then that's a crusade that we can speak it into existence. And Shawn and I, in our work, have helped families. We've helped families in the special needs communities with trusts, with mortgage options, with life insurance, and annuities, and making sure that things are in place. Debt elimination. So the stuff that we do in our business, we already have a list of families that we have impacted, and that's great. But we want to impact more. We want to have a larger footprint. We want to make sure that people in the special needs community know that there's a resource that they can turn to, just like they would for educational resources or physical therapy resources. There's also a financial therapy, if you will, or a financial services solution, and we want to be able to serve that community. We're always looking for people who have alignment with that crusade and want to join the business with us to go and reach. The more folks that we have on our team to do this, the more people that we're going to be able to impact.
It takes a sizable agency to do what we want to do. And then we think about it, it's like, I don't know if you remember this analogy, Brian. You talked about, as we were trying to put together, and this is a whole nother topic, but when Brian approached me and asked me, have you ever thought about taking what we do in financial services and taking that to the special needs community? Yeah, I thought about it a lot. I've been in the business longer than him, and quite frankly, I spent more time getting the nerve to try and do that, because I was new. We were new to the community, my wife and I, by way of Elijah's diagnosis. And it's been a big growing thing for me, because my first thought was, if I once have anybody in the special needs community question my intention or my integrity, I just don't think I could. I don't think I could deal with that. And so I had to grow. And then it hit me, and I realized, there's people that are atheists. There's people that believe in a greater power of being. Both of those groups have a lot that they don't agree on, but they both agree that, take Jesus as an example, what his intentions were. Despite those intentions, he was questioned to the point of death. I'm a mere mortal. So whether you believe in him as a greater being or not, the bottom line is, if he was questioned to the point of death where his intentions were the very best, who am I to think that mine won't be by some people? And then you have less to give to those who are like, oh my gosh, where have you been? And then at the end of the day, we're each product of the services and education and everything that we talk about. In other words, our families have been changed by those things. And so I remember, Brian, this is an analogy that you gave. You said, look, we have access to, especially here in the state of California, there's different services that you have that are free of charge. So that includes, in our case, it was pull-ups for Elijah, because he got successfully potty trained at a later age. They'll literally pay for somebody to deliver those to your door. They'll pay for your therapy, whether you go to a facility or the therapist comes to your home. They'll actually pay for respite, which is just an opportunity for you to, as a couple or a single parent, pick your head up, maybe go out to get something to eat, have a date night, or whatever the case is when a trusted individual is watching your child. But is there anything in place for you to plan for your future, whether it's the very near future or the distant future, where there's a time where, as I say, we will exist only in memory because that day is coming, whether we believe it or not. And you mentioned, Brian, we have access to all these things, but where's the financial respite, so to speak? There is no such thing. And much like the very services that you get here in the state of California, which are free of charge, they're there. But if you don't know, you don't get them if you don't ask. People don't come showing up and offering them to you from your regional center. And if you don't know, then you don't know to ask. So you only know what you know. And that is the same thing when it comes to the financial concepts, products, services, and opportunity that we share with people.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm being a stepmom over here.
That's, and by the way, that's so funny, Joe, that you said that, because I was just thinking, what's so great. No, don't apologize. The great thing about,
Sorry.
Yeah, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry.
Okay, good. About the podcast that we do is that we don't do this producer's cut. We don't spend time cutting it, only because conversations are real in the moment. And for families with children, who have special needs issues, we are constantly juggling and adjusting and having to be, having to make accommodations. The world is not perfect. It is actually perfectly imperfect. The fact that you have and in fact, we have this too. I almost said to Shawn, let's, make sure Elijah is available. But we know that Elijah runs on Elijah's schedule, and Elijah does only Elijah knows what Elijah's schedule is going to be from any moment to the next. And so, the thing I love about it is that Elijah has popped onto the show every once in a while, or has been just off camera, but that is the reality of what we deal with, right? It's not picture perfect. It's not always, perfectly outlined. So you're going to have those moments where you have to be, you're being a stepmom, which is amazing. By the way, folks, that's being a stepmom means that she's married, lives in upstate New York.
After I told her not to do any of it, she
has a job, she drives a car, and she was told none of that was going to be her future.
And that's something else. That's a whole other direction, but she wasn't just told that. So this fits into the 1,000 Families Served, personal development, business, and everything, which is that when people have taken a long time to get an education, to get a degree, and have that title, and have it next to their name, we forget that they're human. So when they give you an opinion, you forget that it is just that. We're like, well, no, the doctor said that this won't happen and that won't happen. And we need so much more of those examples. We know there's more of them out there. Jordan is one of many examples where, a parent was told, here's what your child will not do. And the list is long. And all those things that you mentioned her doing, living on her own, being married, being a stepmom, working, driving, all those are all the things that they said wouldn't take place. So we have to remember too that we are our best advocates, and the best advocates for our children and loved ones that we're caregivers for. And then in the whole personal development realm as well, the other thing is the person that we were as a result of the challenges that we faced and the things that we've come through, that puts us in the best position to serve people who are in that position that we used to be in.
Exactly, right? Those things that we think disqualify us from helping actually qualifies us.
Exactly. And we forget that we sell ourselves short. If there was a way to monetize selling yourself short, nobody would be broke.
That's right.
The California exam that I had to take. Do you remember my story there? When the day I was taking my test, it was raining. I didn't eat, didn't sleep at night, completely stressed out about the test. I was running late. My roommate was taking me and wouldn't let me study. And so there was so much going on. And then I ended up passing it. It doesn't matter how many times I took it, but that day I was taking it, so many things was going on. And then I ended up passing it. So, you get obstacles throughout your life, or you don't think you're going to be you have so many obstacles that you have to hop over and get through to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But at least you can see that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. May not be when you expect it, but there is one. It just will depend on when you get there.
Yeah, and it's part of it's part of everybody's story. You know, I don't remember if it was in a training with work or the previous show, but I remember talking about the idea of perfection. Like if you stopped and thought about the world being perfect and people being perfect, what that would actually mean. And if you really stop to think about what it means, it's something that nobody would want any part of. You know, you really wouldn't, because there's no balance. There's just, you know what I mean? First of all, you have to really stop and think about the concept because it's so far from the, you know, anybody's reality. But everything that we go through, you know, makes us who we are, who we become, and it really is happening for us rather than to us. If we were to end up, you know, thinking about it, it's like when I was a kid, I had a fear of death. Hopefully, everybody sees a relation here. I had a serious fear of death. My great grandmother was the first person that I knew that was close to me that had passed away, and I was 13 at the time. And I developed this fear of death, and I just thought if there was a way to like not age and just live forever, that would just be so great, so great. And Brian, you know, with these questions that I always come about with, these that you ask of yourself in the universe, one of them that I ended up asking was, you know, if you could live forever, and let's say you're not going to age, not that you're just going to live forever and crumble, would you want that? And my answer to that used to always be, yeah, why not? I mean, especially if you're throwing in the not aging part completely, you know, but you know what I mean? Because when you think of living forever, you think of, you know, aging as well. So why wouldn't you want to do that? But the thing is, if tomorrow was guaranteed, right? How special would today be?
Right. Just be another day.
You know?
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day.
Completely. So that speaks to, you know, there's people that are listening and hearing this and going, wow, that's deep and insightful. There's people that are hearing it and going, what the hell is he talking about? I don't know which one takes place, but
that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, as we kind of wind down, you know, again, just want to share, you know, a few last minute things. First of all, we've had folks on our podcast over the last 2 years that have had some, you know, some notoriety, some celebrity, if you will. Holly Robinson Pete was on our show. Greg Grunberg, who, by the way, Holly Robinson Pete and her husband Rodney Pete, they have their own foundation. They have a child on the autism spectrum who works for the LA Dodgers, as a matter of fact. Greg Grunberg, who's started to put out a series for caregivers, is somebody who's a caregiver. You know, we've had Nava Paskowitz and Matt Asner, Ed Asner's son, and the Ed Asner Foundation that they run for, you know, kids and for families with special needs, family members. And then we've had people who, you know, not a lot of folks know about. And the reality is the impact that they have, whether they're well known or not well known, is so significant. You know, when you give of yourself, when you put the interests of other people ahead of your own, and you give of yourself and you make a contribution, it has a ripple effect in our society. And, you know, I always end the show, not that we're ending the show at the moment, but I always end the show about, you know, talking about empathy and love. But that is really what it's all about. Our first time that we talked to Mark Esposito, an educator in New York, who didn't have a child on the autism spectrum, had no family members on the autism, you know, in the special needs community. And he just did it because it was an area that was of interest to him. So he understood and, you know, helps young adults with transition. He made a difference and didn't have a personal experience to overcome, go through, and, you know, and pass on. So we're just as blown away by those folks who come into our community because they just, something appeals to them, something hits them in a particular way, and they serve, or they've had their own experience and they want to turn around and make a difference for others. We've had authors who have written books and are writing books that will have long-term effect. And so for us, as we look at our goal between now and next July, as Sean Hall just hit me with end it soon because we're getting close. Thank you, Sean Hall. But our goal of 1,000 families by the end of next July is a real thing. And I think we're going to keep. I think we want to keep that. Keep a tally of that. If anybody who's listening or is watching that wants to participate with us, wants to explore that more, please reach out to us at wearejust2dads@gmail.com and let us know. If you want to join this crusade. I think ultimately what we're going to do, and I'm only going to make a brief mention of this, Sean, because we don't have all of the pieces together yet, but we really are talking about possibly creating a foundation as well that will provide education in communities all over the country and in Canada, and probably internationally as well as our company expands, about providing financial literacy and financial education to families, and specifically geared towards family members in the special needs community. And we, again, with our help with Sean Hall and Adam Hancock and Susanna and Jordan. Jordan is a teacher now. Susanna is a coach and now an author. Adam as a senior, securities advisor. Like there are things that we're each going to be able to bring to the foundation and create an avenue for folks to make a difference in the lives of. We're 1,000. I think at some point we're going to look back and in the future we're going to look back and go, man, we played so small, Sean. 1,000 families. Like, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
And it's 1 million families, or is it 20 million families? Like, we want to impact as many as we possibly can. So, just wanted to say that this is sort of an informal launch on our 100th episode of the goal to expand our crusade and build a foundation to make a difference in the lives of special needs families all over.
Yeah. And here's what that comes down to, plain and simple, which is that we want to up our service, the service game, right? Muhammad Ali, the great Muhammad Ali, had a saying where he said that, the service to others is the rent that you pay for your room. Is the rent that you pay for your room while on earth. Okay. And you can do one of two things. You can work a job and be of service to people, which is nothing to be ashamed of at all. But if you can find a way to make your service your work, where it provides a living for you, and you as a result then have more control over your time to not only spend time with your loved ones, but the work and the service go together, and you do that on your time, because we're never going to be as young as we were when I began this sentence or when I just ended it, then that's a very, not only a noble thing to do, but you're increasing your effectiveness. And so from the financial services piece, the things that we cover are proper protection, which means the right amount and the right type of life insurance. It means debt elimination, whether you're talking about credit cards, student loans, or tax debt. It means planning for your future, putting your money someplace where it can outpace inflation. And if it's done right, you can do that without the risk of losing it, and where you might have to, pay no taxes on what you grow as well. Most people don't know that those things exist. And if those things, as well as estate planning, having a plan for your money, no matter how much you have, because if you don't have a plan, the government does. If those things are important for neurotypical individuals, it's 10 times more important for our family. And I know there's some of you out there who are thinking about, look, I'm trying to get through today. Don't talk to me about tomorrow. I don't even know if tomorrow's coming, right? It's difficulty in speaking. The difficulty in speaking about it doesn't make it any less real or any more important to talk about in face. And we just want to give people that opportunity. And there's people that may want to, as Brian said, be part of that crusade and do that. So we're going to be sharing that as we go forward. And again, I say this every week. I think this is probably pretty close to the fastest hour that's gone by. I don't know.
It does seem to fly by.
Yeah.
It does seem to fly by.
Yeah.
Maybe not when you have a little one crawling around like Jordan does, but for the most part, it seems to go by pretty fast. No, don't apologize. Yeah. It's good, babe. It's all.
Yeah. What are some of the last minute things that you wanna share, Jordan?
Nothing. I mean, I'm just happy to be on. I was happy to be able to share my experience. I'm just happy that you guys are doing this, and can't believe it's been the 100th episode in the last 2 years. I mean, just 2 years alone, let alone being a 100 episode, those two things separately is amazing, and it's a huge accomplishment. And I can't see what the future brings, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Well, thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much. And you know what it says? Here's what it really comes down to. This time we have touchy-feely things on the show. We talk about some things that are difficult to talk about. I'm gonna get a little closer in here. Here's the truth. The last 2 years and 100 episodes tells you that time is going to continue to move. I saw something the other day that actually freaked me out. It said this comedian that I know by the name of Tony Baker, who's hilarious. You should follow him on Instagram. But he made this post in response to this some acknowledgement that the rotation of the Earth in the last year or something like that has actually sped up. So the fact that that we talk about how quickly time flies, time is a construct, and time going fast or slow is perception, right? Time flies when you're having fun and it crawls when you're bored. But that statement is about it actually moving. That's scary. The bottom line is it's going fast and we're not here forever. So that's not to freak anybody out, but that's to get you to accept that so that the most energy can be put into being the very best that we can while we're here. And if you know anybody in any way, shape, or form that wants to do that, and especially if they're doing that as it relates to the special needs community, by all means, let us know. With that said,
my contribution to that is, again, one of my favorite Broadway musicals is Rent, and the Seasons of Love. That song, 525,600 minutes. It's like, how do you measure, a life in a year? There's how many minutes there are in 1 year, 525,600 minutes. So where are you spending those minutes? Because there's only, at least in my particular case, there's only fewer 525,600 blocks of time than I've had in the past. So where I want to spend my minutes going forward, and again, I have a whole new fresh perspective on that, is of service, in love, of with empathy and making a difference in the lives of the people around me, because the alternative is what? The alternative is dying alone, in my opinion, right? Being of insignificance.
I keep forgetting whether we're months apart or a year apart, but we're essentially the same age. So here's the real truth. Statistically, and I stress statistically speaking, got air quotes going, we have more time behind us than we do in front of us. But the truth of the matter is, tomorrow is a bunch of things, but I promise is not one of them, regardless of anybody's age. So we don't know what we've got. So we don't need to freak out. We just need to, not waste the time. And here's the thing that I realized. I talked about the fear of death that I had. What I have more than anything is not a fear of departure, but a fear of the wrong departure. And here's the wrong departure. Whether you're on a deathbed and you go slowly or something happens quickly, but having as short a list as possible, and hopefully maybe even a non-existent list of things that I wished I did. Because I know if something happens like that right now, I'm going with a whole lot of pain in my heart, because there's a lot of things that I haven't done, and a lot of time that I've wasted that I can't get back. And the people that love me have been so great in my life because they've tolerated that waste of time. If you want to live, if you want to be real, I've lived my life as though I got a hookup and I'm on the guest list upstairs or something like that. I'll be up in a minute. I'm just, like as though I'm going to go out there and be like, no, it's not I don't have that. We don't. So anyway, with that said,
for me, my greatest gift, among my greatest gifts for sure, is that gal right there on that screen. I love who Jordan is. I love her heart. I love her commitment. I love her spirit, everything about her. For me, it's one of the greatest sources of pride. So I have more work to do, but I am blessed because I have you as my friend, Shawn, and Jordan as my, one of my 3 children, but my oldest child, and, again, brings me pride and joy every single day. So as we wrap up this episode, Joe, thank you for being a guest on our 100th episode, which I'm excited about.
Thank you.
Shawn Francis, we have so much to catch up on and so much to talk about yet. And I love talking to you and doing this business with you and doing this work with you. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for your partnership. I'm grateful for the place in your family that you have provided me. And there's so many more things that I can possibly say, but I'll save it because we don't have time to be emotional right now. Shawn Hall, thank you for being, our standard bearer here for, keeping the art stuff together and making sure that we do the things that we've set out to accomplish. So we love you, Shawn Hall, and, aloha in Hawaii, and Susanna and Adam and everybody else that is going to be a part of what we're doing on a going forward basis. I love you all. Empathy and love, folks. Empathy and love makes the world a better place. So just keep that in mind as I throw it back to you, Shawn, to sign off. And then don't forget, you got to
Yep.
send us off.
I want to thank, as always, I want to thank anyone that's ever taken a minute to check out the show and has been supportive of us. Thank you so much. As we wrap up episode 100, I want to thank the women in my life who not only would I not be without them, that is my amazing wife, Laura, and my mom, Jan, but they've also tolerated the waste of the time that I've talked about in terms of me being the best I could be. So with the gift of life, the best is, yet to come. I want to thank Shawn Hall as well for, everything that he does. And those of you, again, we're going to impact 1,000 families over the next 12 months. We're going to find ourselves looking back, as Brian said, thinking that we're thinking, small at 1,000. But wherever you are, thank you so much. And however you catch the show, catch us on our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and share. Wherever you are, we love you. Thank you.
Love you.